Hello, CST family, and welcome to this month's safety meeting for March 2021. We will be going over an in-depth look at backing. There are three main objectives. Number one, to give you the knowledge of everyday situations that can cause backing accidents. Number two, review the proper and safe backing techniques for school buses. And finally, understand why most backing accidents can be prevented with proper following techniques. There is a quiz at the end of this training that will be due, so make sure to pay attention and try not to fall asleep.
In this course, we're going to talk about preventing backing accidents. Do you remember when you first got your driver's license? If you're like most people, you found the maneuverability test to be the hardest part. In fact, I know of friends who would borrow a compact car just to make it easier. Well, as a professional operator, you don't have that luxury, and you'll quickly learn it's best to simply avoid backing whenever possible. Through this course, you'll begin to understand the dangers of backing and be able to pinpoint the behaviors that lead to backing accidents. Finally, you'll learn some tips on how to safely back your vehicle, but only when it's absolutely necessary. Now, we talk a lot about removing or reducing risk in order to prevent accidents, and with backing, you can avoid the risk completely. Don't back up. If you never back up, you'll never have a backing accident. But if you absolutely have to back up, look around and communicate are the two main defensive driving practices you'll use to reduce the risk. Backing is one of the most dangerous maneuvers you can make with a large vehicle and must always be approached with extreme caution. Again, it should only be performed when absolutely necessary and, if at all possible, with a trusted spotter.
Why? I rock and roll to see around my blind spots. Isn't that enough?
Even if you rock and roll, there are still areas that you can't see when you're backing up. Also, you can't watch every mirror in every angle at the same time. While you're looking in one mirror, a vehicle or person could move into the space on the other side. Let's face it, when backing, your view of what you're approaching is often blocked. That's why accidents involving backing are one of the highest accident frequencies on record. Simply put, your ability to see where you're going is very limited. So if you're not extremely careful, you could back into vehicles, mailboxes, fences, posts, and even pedestrians. At some operations, drivers are required to call dispatch if they have to back their vehicle. It may seem like a hassle and time-consuming, but it's never a bad idea to get a second opinion from your supervisor. Calling dispatch is another precaution you can take to reduce backing accidents. Remember, accidents are always preventable, and especially backing accidents. Again, the goal is to stay safe. If you never back your vehicle, you'll never be at risk for having a backing accident. This would make you safer. You should always be aware of what's happening in and around your vehicle, and that includes behind it. Remember, you have a big blind spot directly behind your vehicle. Knowing what's happening around your vehicle at all times will help you avoid an accident, if you ever have to back the vehicle. Remember, all accidents happen for one of three reasons. Let's review those reasons now. The first is, people fail to pay attention.
I don't know about other drivers, but I always pay attention, especially when I'm backing up.
Okay, but let's say you're reverse parking the vehicle on the ready line, and instead of continually checking your mirrors while backing, you get distracted when you see a coworker in the yard and you have to wave to them. In that moment, you fail to pay attention, and bam, you back into another vehicle. The second reason that people have accidents is people exceed their performance capabilities. Trying to back a vehicle without first getting out and looking to see what's behind it is a classic example of exceeding your capabilities. Face it, you can't see behind the vehicle from your seat, and that's why you must get out and look. The third reason is people engage in patterns of unsafe behavior. I know of one operator who would never get out of her vehicle and walk around it to see if it was safe to back. Well, just like it says in safety best practices, unsafe behavior repeated often enough will always result in an accident. And sure enough, she eventually backed up and struck a pedestrian. She claims that she never saw her until it was too late.
Whoa, back it up, back it up.
Beep, beep, beep.
Tractor store.
Beep, beep, beep.
Did you know that 20 to 30% of accidents of all carrier vehicles was a result of the vehicle backing? Our Meridian location is part of the Western region for Student Transportation of America, and we have seen almost 24% of our accidents in the region were results from backing collisions. Now, most of these accidents resulted in minor property damage, but as we all know from the 329(1) law, each of these minor accidents make it more and more likely that a major incident or accident is likely to occur. We would never want a situation to result in the injury of a pedestrian or employee. While the answer to the next question may seem obvious, let's ask it anyway. Why is moving forward less hazardous than backing? As professionals, we all know that the safest way to back up is to not back up at all. But here at the Meridian lot, we can't avoid backing because of the layout of our bus lot and the way that we park the buses. Beyond getting out of your parking spot, are you able to get through your entire day without backing? Have you ever considered changing up your route so if you are backing now that you don't have to back up in the future? The best way to avoid backing is to plan for a safe exit before venturing forward.
Let's go over the main points of how to prevent backing accidents. One of the highest accident frequencies are backing accidents. In a 5-hour day, you are likely to only back for a minute of time. This is less than 0.5% of the day. Yet, backing is one of the highest causes of accidents. This shows how dangerous backing up is. Please don't take these actions lightly. It's really worth your time and effort not to back up at all. If you never back your vehicle, you'll never have a backing accident. It's that simple. Think before you put your vehicle into a position where it may have to back up. In fact, act as though your vehicle doesn't even have a reverse gear.
I get it now. Only back the bus when you have no other options, right?
Exactly. But because you do have to back sometimes, make sure your mirrors are properly adjusted at all times. Get out and look around your vehicle. Oh, and never back into traffic. If you do have to back, put on your 4-way flashers, open the driver's window, honk the horn, and check your mirrors. Don't forget to cover your brake and back very slowly, because things behind you could change in an instant. Remember, backing your car is something you have to do quite often. But as a professional operator, backing the bus should be your last resort.
There are some pretty ugly consequences for backing accidents. Anything from traffic tickets, lawsuits, court appearances, which are pretty bad, but nothing as bad as injuring someone or damaging their property. Then there's also the preventable accident stain that goes on your driving record. And something I never want to happen to anyone, losing your job. You are too valuable for something like this to lead to something like that. And the reasons that backing accidents happen are just plain avoidable. Things like rushing or being late, trying to get out of the way, maneuvering in or through spaces that are too tight for a school bus, or avoiding pedestrians or other moving traffic. Backing accidents also happen due to blind spots, being in an unfamiliar location, or due to fixed objects. As professionals in the transportation industry, it is all of our jobs to eliminate as much risk as possible. Are we ever going to be able to eliminate all risk? Of course not, but we can eliminate some. Some of the strategies everyone can use to reduce risks when backing is, number one, plan out your backing approach. Always use a spotter if you have to back up. Number two, don't rush. Take your time. Beep your horn to make sure everyone is aware of your intentions and be aware. 3, check all sides of the bus. This isn't just the driver's side and passenger door side. Check the top of your bus, below the bus, check it all. And finally, number 4, use proper and safe backing methods if you have to back up. This means using a spotter, taking your time, being aware of all sides of your bus, and using the goal method. The goal method is simple: to get out and look. It's worth a second mention. Get out and look. But what exactly does get out and look entail? Seems like a rather simplistic question, but sometimes in life, things really are not as simple and obvious as they sound. Goal means that you can't be aware of all of your surroundings just sitting in the driver's seat. You need to get out of the bus, check the path in which you plan to go, check both sides, check overhead and below. Check the pavement and the road and evaluate the risk using all of those factors. If the distance that you plan to back up is longer than a couple of yards, you may need to get out and look several times in several different locations. Remember, you are the professional in student transportation. Understanding that the goal method helps eliminate risk is part of the job, and an important one at that.
Knowing what an accident is only the beginning. Now let's discuss backing behaviors.
I can be on my best behavior and still have an accident. So how can my behavior prevent backing accidents?
Well, the first good behavior pattern to develop is never back the vehicle. It's always better to drive around the block or find another route. I know that's not always practical, but it should always be preferred. Now, when you do have to back the vehicle, here are some guidelines for you to follow. First, make sure your mirrors are properly adjusted. You'll do this during your pre-trip inspection every morning before you leave the yard. Second, achieve the goal of getting out and looking, if you are allowed to do this, or if the vehicle has no students aboard. That's right, you must physically get out of the vehicle and walk to the back to make sure everything is clear. Next, you should try to engage the help of a responsible spotter. An extra set of eyes is always safer when you're backing. Make sure you agree on hand signals for back right, back left, and stop. Then position the spotter to the side of the point where you intend to end up. That way they don't have to back up with you and risk falling. Unfortunately, there have been a number of cases where the vehicle backed over the spotter and killed them. If you must turn as you back, have the spotter move sideways to remain in your mirrors, but well away from the back of the vehicle. Before you put the vehicle in reverse, activate the four-way hazard lights and open your driver's window so you can hear noises outside the bus. This increases your awareness, and in the event that someone yells stop, you'll be able to hear them. Make sure you back slowly at idle speed and give short, continuous horn beeps as you back. Keep checking your left and right mirrors. Back and turn toward your driver's side whenever possible so you can see objects better. Backing toward the right side is very dangerous because your blind spots are larger and you cannot see as well. However, when you back and turn toward the driver's side, you can see where the rear of your vehicle is headed by looking out the driver's side window. Always use driver's side backing, even if it means going around the block to put your vehicle in this position. The added safety is worth it. Check your mirrors again and remember those blind spots near the rear and sides of the vehicle. This is important. Never back your vehicle into traffic or while on a public road. Find a different place to turn the vehicle around or go around the block to reposition your vehicle safely. While backing, you have to make sure that the people near and behind the vehicle know your intentions. Believe it or not, even though you have flashing lights and a warning beeper, other drivers and pedestrians, they might ignore you. There may be a rare occasion when you have to back up when there are lots of people and/or traffic around you. If this happens, you need at least 2 spotters to stop the people and the cars so that you can back into a clear space. This is very dangerous, and it's better to go slow and get the help of the spotters rather than risk killing a bystander or hitting a vehicle. If in doubt, get the help you need. Remember, there are ways to prevent backing altogether, especially in traffic and on roadways. For example, when you stop behind another vehicle, stay back at least 2 car lengths. There's a chance they could break down, and you'll need room to maneuver around them. Stopping behind stop lines is another way to avoid backing. Large vehicles need plenty of room to make turns. When you stop behind the line, you'll have the room you need to maneuver and not put yourself in an unsafe backing situation. Do not back up your bus at the request of another vehicle who is attempting a turn and has run out of room. Let them deal with it. Backing accidents are the result of unsafe behaviors. So, it makes sense that if you eliminate the unsafe behaviors, you'll eliminate those accidents. It's always better to get out and look every time, so long as you're empty and it's allowed. Bottom line, if you're not 100% certain, do not back your vehicle.
What are some of the unsafe behaviors that could lead to a backing accident?
Oh, well, here's a list. Backing when it's not necessary. Trying to back a vehicle without properly adjusting the mirrors. Backing without first getting out and looking if empty or allowed. Backing too quickly. Backing onto a street or on a public highway. And backing without a spotter. Each location is different, but a good policy states that you should always avoid backing your vehicle. It's all about minimizing your risk. If you don't have to back the vehicle, you won't have a backing accident.
But that's not always possible. There are times when you do have to back the vehicle. Sometimes it's unavoidable.
Of course, like in certain situations in the yard. However, if at all possible, you should try to change the situation permanently so that you don't have to back. But if it can't be changed, you have to make sure the area around the vehicle is clear before backing. To do this, you have to use a spotter or get out and look, also known as GOAL for short. In some states or districts, the driver is not allowed to get out of the vehicle if students are aboard. However, if you are allowed, get out and look. Your trainer will tell you the practice in your location. Part of the definition of an accident is that accidents are unplanned events. If you hit a car while backing the vehicle, that's an accident. What can you add to the definition of accidents?
So if backing is absolutely unavoidable, like it is here at CST, how can we minimize backing accidents? Well, adjusting, cleaning, and using your mirrors is a good start. Make sure that you pay full attention. This means shutting off your radio and silencing your fans and blowers so you can rely on your sense of hearing as well as your sense of sight. And finally, avoid blindside backing whenever possible, which is unavoidable because it's how we get out of our bus parking spots. So let's discuss blindside backing real quick. If you need a refresher on what blindside backing is, here's an official definition. Blindside backing is backing towards the right side of the vehicle. Seriously though, the driver has limited visibility and can only see where he or she is going in the school bus's mirrors. Blindside backing is more dangerous than side backing and should be avoided whenever possible. When backing towards your blind side or the right side, make sure to survey your surroundings. Inspect all sides of your bus, including overhead and underneath. Inspect the road surface. Eliminate any noise once you are back in the driver's seat by shutting off those radios and fans. Open your windows so you can listen for warning sounds, and as you begin backing, take your time and use your mirrors. And if in doubt, use the GOAL method and get out and look. Our location is one that requires all of our drivers to back their buses a minimum of twice a day. So here are a few tips to minimize backing collisions. Number 1, check behind and all around your vehicle before backing. Number 2, use a spotter if needed. You need to understand that if you use a spotter, you need to, number 1, determine a communication system such as hand signals and make sure you know what those hand signals mean. Number 2, remember that you as the driver still have full responsibility for backing safely. And number 3, when in doubt, use the GOAL method and get out and look. Number 4, sound your horn with 2 short blows prior to backing. Number 5, activate your emergency flashers. And 6, back slowly, taking your time and immediately after checking around your vehicle. There are some scenarios where you shouldn't back no matter what. Those are situations like backing into a busy street or highway, backing into moving traffic, or backing into a dark area without using the GOAL method to verify the space is safe to back into. So to wrap this all up, remember that as professionals in the transportation industry, we need to eliminate risks as much as we can. Drivers are responsible for the vehicle and need to prevent backing accidents by using the GOAL method and getting out and looking and taking your time. In this segment, we're going to talk about the importance of doing a proper child check. We also discuss the child check double check process. We all know that as professional drivers and monitors, we have a dedication and passion really to keep the students of our district safe and secure. But it is a proven fact that even the most conscientious professional can be susceptible to getting distracted, even by a simple change in routine. A reminder to check the bus after every segment serves everyone well, especially the kiddos. One of the safest modes of transportation to school for students is on a school bus. Statistics show that in the event of an accident, school buses are one of the safest vehicles on the road. But once the students unload at the school or at home and the school bus returns to the bus lot, it's no longer a safe place for any child. This is why it is a vital responsibility of not just school bus drivers and monitors, but the entire staff to ensure that no student is left on the bus prior to leaving the bus or leaving the bus lot. It is an unfortunate fact that students are left on school buses unattended or wandering the bus parking lot. It hasn't happened at our location, but there have been hundreds of incidents of students remaining on the bus for several hours, unattended and exposed to freezing or baking temperatures, depending on the time of year. Sometimes the student exits the bus and then is exposed to another level of danger that is located in a school bus lot. Clearly the stakes are high, and we never want to put any child at risk. We have equipped all of Cascade Student Transportation school buses with child check alarms, requiring every driver to walk the length of the bus after turning the engine off. While this is a good system that helps to ensure everyone is checking for children after every route, it's not foolproof. This is why Student Transportation of America, our parent company, created the double check system. Unfortunately, in the process of creating this segment, I found it too easy to find an example of a child being left on a bus. While we are all familiar with the story of the special needs student, Paul Lee, there is another student I want to introduce you to. Ellery Cartier Molinari was a 4-year-old kindergartner in November of 2017 in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. It was right after the time change from daylight savings, and the weather was cloudy and freezing. Little Ellery fell asleep on the bus on her ride home from school on Monday night. Her regular bus stop was an after-school daycare. When her mom, Joanne, got off work at around 5:15, she headed over to the daycare just like she did every other day. But on this day, Ellery would not be there. This is a parent's absolute worst nightmare. It was a Facebook post that would help unite Ellery with her mom.
When I got off of work around 5:15, I went to the daycare. When I got there about 5:30, I went inside, I looked around for Ellery. I'm like, where's Ellery? And the teacher was like, she didn't get off the bus today. I was like, what do you mean she didn't get off the bus today? Because she takes the bus there every day, and she goes to daycare almost every single night until I get off work. So, like, freaked out. I tried calling the school. I tried calling the bus company. Then after both of those attempts failed, I called the police. And then it was, I got a hold of her teacher, and she said she's confident, like very sure that Ellery got on the bus after school. They were sure she got on the bus. And so I knew that she either fell asleep on the bus or someone took her, because those are the only two options. She wouldn't have gotten off at a different stop. She's not that type of kid. So yeah, from there we were trying to get a hold of the bus company, and like their office is closed. There's no emergency phone number. So my sister Jill posted on Facebook, like in this group of like 5,000 moms, asking if anybody worked for Pearson or knew someone who worked there, because we were pretty sure that Ellery was still on the bus, and we basically wanted to know where their buses are parked so that we can go find it. So that took about an hour until they got a hold of someone from the bus company so that they could locate the bus. And then once they found it, she was on the bus. She was sleeping, and my brother-in-law was the first one there. Yeah, she was pretty shaken up. It's not as bad as me though. Well, at first, like, she's missing, and then when I could start thinking a little bit more rationally, I was like, okay, it's likely that she, like, probably fell asleep on the bus. She's 4 years old. They just stop napping when they start, like, junior kindergarten. Like, she probably fell asleep on the bus. But then I'm thinking, it's cold. It's 5:30, almost 6 o'clock at night, and if she's awake on that bus, she's freaking out. Like, so... Luckily, I'm pretty sure she slept the whole time, but it's hard to get her to communicate that. Yeah, I was worried.
And finally, what about how she is in the reunion?
She stays strong for me. She was really brave, and she was really excited to see me. I don't think she realized, like, the severity of the situation, but she gave me a big hug and said she was, like, worried, but she was happy to see me, and then kind of was being strong.
As you can imagine, the driver, who had 16 years experience as a school bus driver, was fired. The school bus company, Pearson Bus Lines, reported that the driver had, quote, broke policy when he neglected to perform a child check walk at the bus to make sure no one was still aboard before he left, unquote. Thankfully, this story ended with the happy reunion of mother and daughter, but that's just not always the case. Paulie was not so fortunate. He, unfortunately, did not get the same warm reunion that Ellery had. And these are just two examples of why we don't just have a policy for child check, but we double check. It's important, and we're so grateful that the professionals that work for CST acknowledge and understand this fact. I would like to address the elephant in the proverbial room here. Please understand that this process is put in place to ensure every child remains safe on one of our school buses. I know how easy it is to think that this was put in place because of some recent events at our bus lot, but really, it was supposed to be in place a long time ago. Every child that rides one of our buses deserves this level of commitment to their safety. If it was your child, niece or nephew, cousin, grandchild, I know a lot of us have our own kids riding these buses. Don't you appreciate these efforts? I know I do as a mom. So even though it is yet again another change happening this school year, dubbed as the year of change, it's so necessary for the sake of the kids. Here's yet another video explaining another reason why child check is so important.
Julie Ford was a school bus driver for nearly 20 years. She was a super person, very friendly and always willing to help others. She was dedicated and greeted every child every day with a smile. In all her 20 years, she never had a single accident. Then suddenly, she was fired from her job. A job she loved and was even arrested for child endangerment. Why? Well, a month ago, Julie had a doctor's appointment and was running late. After she made her last stop, she returned to the yard, parked the bus, and immediately drove to her appointment. Relieved that she got there on time, she starts to relax until she gets a phone call from her supervisor. Julie starts to panic. She remembers being in a hurry and forgetting to check the bus. She drops everything and heads back to the bus garage. By the time Julie arrives back at the yard, her supervisor has already checked the bus. She emerges from the bus into the parents' arms, and everything turns out okay. Except for Julie. Here was a driver with a spotless record, a wonderful attitude, working in a job she loved, and it was all taken away from her for making one mistake. Can you understand why we feel this is so important? Days later, Julie was still remorseful, and through tears, she asked herself, how could I have let this happen?
Cascade Student Transportation Child Check Policy states that a child check must be completed after every route segment. Once you deliver your students to their destination, whether it's to school, returning home, to an activity, or whatever, you must complete a child check after unloading the students. This means pulling over to a safe location, pulling your parking brake and putting your bus in neutral, and checking every single row on both sides very thoroughly all the way to the back of the bus. Once you've determined that there are no remaining students, continue on your route. This is what it looks like. In the morning, after you drop off your high school students at the school, you must complete a child check in the bus loop before proceeding to your middle school route. After picking up your middle school students, dropping them off at school, you again must complete a child check in the bus loop before proceeding to your elementary school. And then, after picking up your elementary school students and dropping them off at school, you again, for a third time that morning and every school day morning, complete a child check before proceeding back to the lot. Middays are the same. Once you pick up those little ones and drop them off at the elementary school, you must complete a child check in the bus loop. If you pick up kindergartners and take them home, after your last stop, you must find a safe location to pull over, put your hazard lights on, and complete a child check before returning to the lot. It doesn't matter if you pick up 1 student or 50. You must complete a child check and have a double check completed when you return to the lot. In the PM, the routine is the same. After dropping off your high school students, after your last stop, find a safe location, pull over, pull your parking brake, put your bus in neutral, turn those hazard lights on, and complete a child check before proceeding to your middle school. After you load your middle school students and take them to their designated bus stops, after your last stop, find a safe location to pull over, pull that brake, put the bus in neutral, and activate those hazard lights and complete a child check. Then proceed to your elementary school. Once again, after you load your elementary school students and drop them off at designated stops, you must find a safe place to pull over, pull the brake, put the bus in neutral, activate those hazard lights, and complete a child check. Then proceed to the lot and have the double check completed by a child check attendant. The double check is always completed back at the bus lot. When you approach Ward Lane, you will, number 1, turn off your lights if it's safe to do so, and then look for that child check attendant at the gate and follow their direction as you cautiously enter. Make sure to activate your turn signal if you want to proceed to your bus parking spot. Also, make sure that you're monitoring your speed and respecting the speed limits that are posted in the lot. Continue to your bus lane. When you approach, you should see a child check attendant wearing a safety vest. Pull into your lane so that you're not backing up traffic, and pull up to the attendant, pull your parking brake, put your bus in neutral, and wave them aboard. The child check attendant will board your bus and conduct a double check, checking every row on both sides very thoroughly all the way to the back. When they return to the front and exit the bus and wave you forward. If you need to fuel, go to shop for a maintenance issue, pull into 5-minute parking to grab route sheets or whatever, your bus must be double checked by a child check attendant before you exit your bus. It is the responsibility of the driver to ensure that your bus is double checked. If you enter the bus lot and there is not a child check attendant there to check your bus, please call into base on your radio and notify them that you have returned to the lot and you need your bus double checked. So here's the stuff that no one likes to talk about, but we have to talk about it. Failure to comply with this policy or any part of it can and will result in termination. So it's really important that you understand the seriousness of this policy. Please do not exit your bus until you've had a child check attendant double check it. If there are any questions or concerns regarding this policy, you can see Paul Gomez, our new operations manager, or Regina Fronteras, safety and training manager. We appreciate everything you guys are doing to keep this community kiddos safe. We never want to put a family through the terror or heartache that the Cartier or Lee family experienced. We transport precious cargo, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to care for and protect these kiddos to the best of our ability. Thank you so much for your commitment to safety. It is because of every single individual's dedication that we're able to provide this vital service to our community. In this segment, we're going to talk about work in construction zones, following distance, and the LLLC. At the conclusion of this segment, we'll be able to answer these questions. Number one, how far ahead should you be looking? What does communicating mean in safe driving? And what three things add up to the total stopping distance? As spring quickly approaches, the number of construction work zones is likely to increase because our community is growing. What does this mean for those of us in the transportation industry? Well, besides needing an extra dose of patience with our fellow drivers on the road, we need to watch our speed, make sure that we're keeping our eyes moving by scanning our mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds, and continually looking ahead and staying alert.
I'm sure you've seen signs of road construction on many of our roadways. In fact, you just can't travel anywhere without running into a construction work zone. Road construction is a sign of a booming economy and provides the necessary improvements to keep traffic flowing and keep us moving. And all of this while more than 100,000 cars and trucks drive through this work zone each day.
Since we can't close the interstate to make these improvements, we have to work around traffic and keep on a production schedule. It's like hosting a dinner party while having your kitchen remodeled.
It's not easy for drivers when there are so many construction zones around, and they can start to become oblivious to the changes, kind of like construction fatigue. But it's just a temporary situation to a permanent solution. Work zones for a major construction project, like the Overland Bridge, can last for several years. Or work zones can be for shorter periods, like a quick sidewalk repair or driveway installation. These work zones can be dangerous areas for both highway workers and drivers.
You'll see accidents up and down this roadway that are multi-car, and the only reason they're multi-car is because they are not paying attention.
Traffic crashes occur within work zones is typically the fault of the driver, not of the zone itself.
In Northeast Florida, drivers log more than 43 million miles daily, which means they may be traveling through multiple work zones. By 2016, there could be construction underway on every major road in Jacksonville alone. Work zone safety is a serious matter. Every day, workers risk their lives while improving our roads and highways. But it may surprise you that most of those killed in highway work zones are actually drivers. According to the Federal Highway Administration, during the past 5 years, more than 4,400 people died in work zone crashes, and 85% of those were either the driver or passenger. And the Center for Disease Control ranks Florida as the state with the most motor vehicle crash fatalities in construction work zones.
It's imperative that everybody gets home safely. If you're distracted when you're driving, you could inadvertently get off the edge of the road and actually fall into a potential situation where we're doing construction and harm yourself, your vehicle, and more importantly, the workers that are trying to get the project done.
All it takes is one little distraction and then you're into our people or into our equipment.
Everyone is in a hurry to get where they need to be, whether it's work, school, a doctor appointment, or even just dinner and a movie. We all want to get there as fast as we can.
Some of the violations that our agency observes day in and day out on our construction zones is multiple violations. What I mean by that is following too closely, excessive speed, improper lane change, or just flat-out violation of a traffic control device.
But we need to use common sense driving techniques while on the road, especially when driving through construction zones.
You've got to pay attention. See that sign that says reduce speed? Some drivers think that applies to everyone else but them. The speed limit is reduced for a reason. Something has happened, whether it's the placement of a barrier wall along the shoulder or traffic has been shifted. Most importantly, there could be someone's mommy or daddy working right next to your lane of traffic. Even those we depend on to keep us safe such as our law enforcement or road rangers, have to work right next to the road to get their job done. Because so much of our construction work is done at night, drivers won't notice changes to the roadways until they drive through the next day. That's why it's important to slow down and pay attention every time you drive through a work zone. And see that car in front of you that slowed down?
Leave some distance between you and them, so in case they have to slam on their brakes, you don't run into their rear end.
Rear-end crashes are the most common types of work zone crashes because drivers tailgate and get impatient when the vehicle in front of them obeys the speed limit or sees a situation which they need to reduce their speed.
Above all, you've got to get rid of all of the distractions and focus on your driving. Put down the cell phone, leave the radio alone, and stop talking to all the people in your car. Just tell them, I'm getting ready to drive through a work zone and I need to give it all of my attention.
We only want to keep you safe as we keep our roadways safe for you. As the population grows and more people move into our area, it's going to get harder to keep up with all the improvements needed. By being proactive, we can take care of our future needs now, before our major roadways become parking lots instead of expressways.
But we need your help on our journey, every single one of you. You can help by following our common sense guidelines. Slow down, pay attention, keep a safe distance, and expect the unexpected.
Nothing is that important that you have to rush through a construction work zone.
Please slow down. We all want to go home safe and sound.
By staying alive on your drive, you can enjoy the things you work so hard for. And our workers can provide you with a smooth and safe ride so that everyone can return home to their families at the end of the day.
After all, isn't that what it's all about? Driving is a privilege, and it's your responsibility to drive safely through a work zone. So stay alert and do your part to protect the lives of other drivers, our highway workers, and yourself.
Construction zones pose dangers for both school bus drivers and construction workers. When people are working on the road with vehicles that weigh around 26,000 pounds or more, becomes a hazard to say the least. Usually the lanes are narrow, the surfaces are uneven, and the construction workers are focused on the job and not on traffic. This is why it is imperative that we need to use extra caution. Extra caution. That's an ambiguous phrase. What does extra caution actually mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. It means reducing your speed, and reducing your speed even more when the workers are in or near the roadway. You can even engage your four-way hazards to communicate with your fellow drivers that conditions require caution. It means looking ahead. You should be looking ahead 12 to 15 seconds and actively preparing to stop if the surrounding conditions call for it. If visibility is limited, like in the case of heavy equipment being parked in the way, or construction materials blocking the view, or even fog or a heavy dust storm blowing through. If visibility is low, it makes scanning the roadway ahead much more challenging. When your visibility is reduced, it means that you have less time to react when hazards present themselves. So be sure to scan as far ahead as possible and adjust your speed and following distance so that you have time to react. Also, just because you see taillights in front of you is not a clear indication of where the road is. If you cannot clearly indicate where the lanes on the road are, you need to pull over safely and wait for conditions to improve. Extra caution also means increasing your following distance. The CDL manual says that a good rule of thumb is at least 1 second for every 10 feet of vehicle length for speeds below 40 miles per hour. So for buses, your following distance should be at least 4 seconds on a clear sunny day traveling at 40 miles per hour or less. For zones with higher speed limits, your following distance increases. For speeds over 40 miles per hour, increase your following distance to 5 seconds. If there are adverse weather conditions like rain or snow, you need to increase your following distance even more and more likely reduce your speed. For rain, increasing your following distance an additional 1 second. for snow, an additional 2 seconds, and an additional 3 seconds for ice or sleet. Driving in bad weather is a hazard in itself. When water or ice are on the roadway, it makes driving any vehicle dangerous. The reason the following distance is so important is because of how long it can actually take to bring a bus to a stop. Which brings me to my next question. What does it take to come to a stop? Well, the total stopping distance is the sum of the perception time plus the reaction time and the braking time. The perception time is the time it takes the driver to see the hazard and the brain to then realize, oh yeah, that's a hazard. This is generally on average about a quarter to a half a second. Once the brain realizes the danger, the reaction time is how long it takes the body to move the foot to the brake pedal. This reaction time takes about a quarter to 3/4 of a second. Since both of these first two components are human factors, several things come into play. Tiredness and fatigue, concentration levels, the effects of substances such as caffeine, medications, foods, and other things. The third component is the braking time. There's a lot that can affect it. For example, tire pressure, the vehicle weight, the coefficient friction of the road surface, the wind speed, the slope of the road, and even the braking technique applied by the driver. All three of these components make up the total stopping time. Understanding what it takes to come to a stop helps you better understand the importance of maintaining your following distance and reducing risk. And that's really what it's all about. The more risk you reduce, the safer we are. Okay, so now let's talk about the LLLC. I'm sure you can all say it with me. Ready? Look ahead, look around, leave room, and communicate. Look ahead. It's not enough to just know what's happening in your immediate environment. Defensive driving is about knowing what will happen. And you can do this by keeping an eye lead time of 12 to 15 seconds. Scan the road ahead to see any action or potential issues before you reach them so that you have as much time as possible to react. In city traffic with cars parked on both sides of the road, look ahead lets you see cars getting ready to pull out, traffic lights getting ready to turn red, and pedestrians or jaywalkers running out into traffic. In the country, look ahead helps you spot the deer, or more likely a cow around here, before they run out in front of you. Making the look ahead principle a habit will make you a safer and more effective transportation professional.
The 4 driving principles to safety help you see, think, and act your way through any traffic situation. Now, these principles allow you to maintain the maximum amount of room around your vehicle. They improve your visibility, and they provide you with extra time to make decisions while driving.
So, Robbie, not to get impatient, but what exactly is driving principle number 1?
Well, driving principle number 1 is look ahead. Looking ahead will help you remove or reduce risk. So let's see how it works. Look ahead means that you look far ahead of the bus while you're driving. To do this, use at least a 15-second eye lead time. Look out beyond where you are now, to a point where the bus will be in the next 15 seconds. For instance, at 30 miles per hour, when you look ahead 15 seconds, it means you're looking out to about 650 feet or approximately 1.5 city blocks. Right now, our driver is looking ahead all the way out to this point. On the highway at 50 miles per hour, that same 15-second eye lead time extends your vision to at least 1,100 feet ahead of you, nearly 1/4 mile. Now the driver is looking out this far in front of the bus. That's what we mean when we say look ahead.
Unfortunately, most drivers only look 3 or 4 seconds ahead. In fact, amateur drivers usually just watch the back end of the vehicle right in front of them. They don't even know they should look further out into the distance. Now that means when a problem develops up ahead, well, the driver only has a few seconds to see it, evaluate it, decide what to do about it, and then take action. Now that's not enough time. It's also why so many accidents happen.
The look ahead principle helps you identify potential hazards long before they can hurt you. Look ahead gives you more time to see and understand the hazard, evaluate it, and safely react to it, thereby reducing risk. For example, you may need to change lanes, slow down, or even bring your bus to a full stop. But when you look ahead, you'll have plenty of time to do it. And you'll avoid unnecessary stops and starts. And, of course, panic stops, which are uncomfortable for you and your passengers.
Has this ever happened to you? You're driving along on a busy road. Traffic's moving okay, and everyone's going about the same speed. And you suddenly notice road construction ahead of you. You have to slow down or maybe even stop. Well, as the Boy Scouts say, be prepared. Looking ahead lets you know what's coming, so you can prepare early for what's about to happen. You can slow down, change lanes, or even stop. Look ahead prevents a lot of accidents, but not all by itself. Now, we'll cover the other 3 driving principles to safety in a minute, but first, let's review. Look ahead involves distance and gives you time to react. It's a defensive driving skill that you can learn, and over time, you can make it a safe driving habit. Now, it begins with a basic understanding, which you now have. Next, it takes thoughtful action on your part. When you first start to use this principle, you have to give it a lot of thought. You almost have to remind yourself throughout the day by saying it out loud.
Look ahead, look ahead, look ahead.
Okay, well, maybe you shouldn't say it out loud too much, but you can think it. Remind yourself every 15 or 20 minutes until it finally becomes a habit.
It took me some time to make this an automatic habit, but the effort was worth it. Now I always look well ahead, and I know what's coming up. I can just adjust accordingly, and it makes my driving easier. I can slow down, change lanes sooner when needed, and it makes driving less stressful. You should make looking ahead your habit too.
Oh, and one final thing. As a professional driver, you have to look farther ahead than a car driver. The bus is bigger and heavier and needs more time and distance to stop. So remember to always look ahead a minimum of 15 seconds.
Look around. This principle is similar to the look ahead principle. It has to do with the environmental demands that you perceive. You need to look around your vehicle, not just in front. Everything around you is constantly changing. The roadway, the traffic, pedestrians, students, pets, birds, inanimate flying objects like footballs, baseballs, frisbees, UFOs. Check your point of focus every 2 to 4 seconds and check your mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds to see around you and navigate your blind spots. This way, you avoid driving with a fixed stare and you stay more alert.
Of course, the information you need to drive safely and avoid accidents isn't just right in front of you, it's all around you. And that's what the second principle is all about. Look around.
Driving principle number 2, look around, means you have to take in the entire scene when you're driving, especially when driving a bus. Remember, you can only remove or reduce the risk from a hazard if you recognize it. By continually looking around, you'll be able to recognize any unexpected hazards. It could be a bicycle, a pedestrian, or even a car trying to squeeze by you at an intersection.
To be aware of your surroundings, you have to constantly move your head and eyes to see everything around the bus. Look around for other cars, pedestrians, and fixed or movable objects in or near the road. And make sure you look around while turning and anticipate the actions of other drivers and pedestrians.
Look around means you change your focus every 3 to 5 seconds. Most of the time you are going to be looking ahead, but every 3 to 5 seconds you should be looking around and absorbing all that is happening so you can allow for it. If you constantly look around, you'll notice things that are changing as they change. When you see them sooner rather than later, you have more time to adjust for the changes in your environment. Well, for example, a car pulls up alongside of you on the highway, a child's ball bounces out into the street from her front yard, or a deer suddenly jumps out from the woods on the side of a country road. If you're driving with a fixed stare or you don't keep moving your eyes and head, you won't notice these potential hazards in time to react to them.
That's right, Robbie. Constant eye and head movement also helps to keep you alert and aware. It prevents you from daydreaming, which often comes from fatigue. If you don't remain alert, it's possible to slip into a fixed stare, which is very dangerous. Of course, moving your head and eyes increases your field of vision as well. But did you know that there are actually 2 types of vision?
Wait, I know this one. Nope, lost it.
Okay. Well, there's central vision and peripheral vision.
Oh, I see.
Central vision is right in front of you. It's what you're focused on, and it's usually no more than 18 degrees wide. Now, this diagram shows just how limited your central vision actually is. Now let's see how the diagram applies to a bus operator. As you can see, there are a lot of things going on outside your central vision, things that can lead to accidents. Moving your head and eyes extends the range of your central vision to the left and right. But you also have peripheral vision, which allows you to notice things up to 80 degrees on each side. Now that gives you a field of vision of about 160 degrees. But peripheral vision only gives you a sense of color and movement. It doesn't give you an accurate image of a particular hazard. So keep your eyes and head moving at all times, and you'll avoid any surprises.
Look around also means that you frequently check your mirrors. Your mirrors increase your range of vision even more. It's important to know what's going on behind you and to either side of the bus, and your mirrors give you that information. You should check your mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds. Constantly moving your head and eyes and checking your mirrors gives you more information and increases your awareness of what's going on around your bus. It also gives you more time to react to any changes that pose additional risks. Sometimes just a half second of warning is all you need to avoid an accident. Here are a few ways that you can put principle number 2, look around, into practice. At intersections, look left, right, and left again before proceeding. Check the left twice because the first vehicle that can hit you will usually come from that direction. Look around for pedestrians on the nearby sidewalks or in the crosswalks. Use the rock and roll procedure to eliminate any blind spots caused by your mirrors or the frame around your front windshield.
Well, Robbie, maybe we should explain that a little bit more.
Well, we teach this procedure in the intersections course, but it really is a great example of look around, so let me cover it briefly. Whenever you're stopped at an intersection where there might be pedestrians, rock your whole body, shoulders and head forward and backward and from side to side while you scan the entire intersection. The rock and roll procedure helps you see around your mirrors and window frames. Do it while you're stopped and be sure to look in every direction. Then, as you start into the intersection, do the rock and roll again to make sure the area is still clear. This is extremely important when turning, especially when turning to the left.
Look around. It's so easy to say, but you have to continually work at it to make it an automatic habit. Now, before I ever move the bus, I scan around everywhere I can. Initially, I need to keep telling myself, look around, look around, look around. Now I do it automatically.
Oh, me too. And remember, pedestrians and other drivers don't have your advanced knowledge or professional skills. They might not be paying attention or looking out for you. And don't fool yourself into thinking that they can't possibly miss that great big bus you're driving. They really don't even see you sometimes.
Now I can see how the first two principles work together. Look ahead and look around both give you more information and time to react to everything going on around your bus.
That's right. The first two principles for driving safely help you collect and process information. Information that you need to remove or reduce risk and avoid accidents.
Leave room. In some ways, this third principle is the most important in defensive driving. It's the most basic insofar as preventing collisions. Keep adequate space in between you and other vehicles or fixed objects. It's essential to leave room on all 6 sides of your school bus. Yep, I said 6 sides. The driver's side, the passenger door side, the front, the back, above, and below. The easiest space to control is the space in front of you. You need to maintain a 4 to 6 second following distance, depending on your speed and weather conditions, so that you as the professional driver can account for other drivers' mistakes. It's simple enough to leave safe following distance, but you're not in direct control of the other 5 sides. For example, you can't control if someone wants to tailgate you. You also want to leave room on both sides, especially if you're on the highway. If you're bottled up in between cars and trucks on both sides of you, you have nowhere to go if something happens ahead. Instead, when a vehicle is next to you on either side, traveling at the same speed, just drop back and let them get ahead of you. Lastly, you have to leave room above and below your vehicle. Be on the lookout for low overhead clearances and low hanging wires or branches. And look ahead and look around for potholes, dips in the road, uneven surfaces, and debris in the roadway.
So now we have 2 driving principles to safely help us gather information and give us more time to react and to reduce the risk created by things going on around us. What's next?
Well, driving principle number 3 is leave room. Now this principle also gives you added time to react. and it acts like a buffer between you and everything else in the world that you could possibly collide with. Imagine driving out in the middle of a big empty desert. No other cars or trucks, no pedestrians, no trees, light poles, mailboxes, or parked cars. Now, certainly, this would be a lot easier and a lot safer. There'd be nothing to hit.
But that's not where we have to drive. We have to drive on streets and highways and in parking lots, all filled with fixed objects and other vehicles. And those other vehicles are all being controlled by other people who usually don't have professional driver training. That's why you want to keep as much space as possible between them and your bus. The more space you can create around you, the safer you are.
And leaving room around your bus gives you time to make adjustments, even when other drivers make mistakes, cut you off, pull in front of you, or run a red light when it's your turn to go. Leave room gives you that extra second to avoid an accident. Remember, you have complete control over the space in front of you. By leaving room, you greatly reduce the risk of a rear-end collision. Reducing the risk means you're safer. Did you know around 30% of all vehicle accidents in North America are rear-end collisions? Now that's just ridiculous when that percentage can be greatly reduced just by leaving room. Now, ideally, you want extra room on all 6 sides of the bus, in front, to the rear, on each side of the bus, and above and below the bus.
And of course, the easiest place to leave room is right in front of your bus. You simply adjust your speed to maintain a safe following distance. This is the one space that you totally control. Again, your bus takes a lot longer and more distance to stop than a car, van, or pickup truck. You need extra space to make up for all that extra weight you have. In clear, dry weather with good visibility, you need at least a 4-second following distance.
If you're following too closely behind the vehicle in front of you, you won't have time to react to any sudden change they might make. In fact, the most dangerous situation is when they suddenly brake. A 4-second following distance gives you more control. It gives you more time to react and more time and distance to stop the bus.
To figure the 4-second following distance, scan ahead to find a fixed reference point, a sign, a stoplight, or some other road element. Then, when the vehicle in front of you passes that object, count off 4 seconds like this: 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. If you reach the object in less than 4 seconds, well, you're following too closely. Slow down and increase your following distance to at least 4 seconds. However, when driving in adverse weather, you need even more space in front of you. The best practice is to add 1 additional second of following distance for each adverse condition. So then rain would be 5, snow would be 6, and ice or sleet is 7.
Now those are road conditions, right? What about visibility issues?
Good point. Fog is actually the worst condition of all. If your sight distance is less than 4 seconds, even at slow speeds, you need to pull over and stop.
And speaking of sight distance, when you're driving at night, regardless of weather conditions, you need to be able to stop within the distance you can see with your headlights. Of course, leaving room isn't always as easy as it sounds. Every time you slow down and back off, somebody else cuts into the space in front of you. Now, sometimes it feels like you'd have to put into reverse to maintain a safe following distance.
I agree with you there, Michael. But you have to adjust for other drivers' mistakes, and it's really not quite that bad. Simply maintain your 4 seconds. If someone tries to steal it from you, back off and reestablish 4 seconds. Remember, you own that space in front of your bus. You control how big it is.
When I started driving a bus, I needed to visualize what a 4-second following distance was at different speeds. I would check this every now and then to make sure I was at least 4 seconds back. Now, I have a really good feel for the right following distance, and I automatically stay back at least 4 seconds. I still recheck occasionally, but now I feel uncomfortable if I'm not always at least 4 seconds back.
Now, the spaces to either side of your bus and behind you are a little harder to keep clear. Sometimes, to maintain room in the rear, you have to actually slow down to motivate an impatient tailgater to move to another lane or to back off. Also, you can't always leave room to your sides. But when you're on a multi-lane highway and someone comes up alongside of you, simply adjust your speed and drop back a bit so they aren't right next to you. Of course, this isn't possible when driving slowly in congested traffic, but whenever you can, keep that space open so you can avoid a sideswipe accident. And finally, drivers seem to always forget about the space above and below their bus. But remember, your bus is a lot taller than a car, van, or pickup truck. You have to be on the lookout for low overhangs. And remember, they're not always marked with a warning sign. And that goes for low-hanging tree limbs and drooping wires. You even have to be on the lookout for a garage door that somebody didn't open all the way.
And that's just the stuff above you.
Exactly. You also have to watch out for what happens beneath you. When driving, scan ahead looking for debris on the roadway or uneven road surfaces around construction zones that can cause you to bottom out.
We can't emphasize enough how important it is to leave room around your bus, especially when it comes to the 4-second following distance. Think about it. If everyone in front of you always acted like they were supposed to, you wouldn't need this extra room. But we know that other drivers don't drive professionally, and we have to allow for their mistakes.
Another way of saying that we allow for other drivers' mistakes is to expect the unexpected. Don't let them surprise you.
Now, expect the unexpected means the car ahead of you realizes that they're about to miss an important turn and suddenly stop. A child or an animal runs out in front of you. A car suddenly pulls over on the highway due to an emergency, like a flat tire. Traffic in the opposing lane crosses into your lane. Now, as a professional driver or operator, you need to leave room for all of these possibilities and others that will happen from time to time.
I'm sure there are a lot of drivers out there that don't keep a 4-second following distance and have never had an accident. What do you say to them?
Well, they're living on luck. Anytime your following distance drops below 4 seconds, you're taking a chance. You're engaged in an unsafe behavior. And as you learned in the Safety Best Practices program, repeated often enough, that unsafe behavior will eventually, in fact, will always lead to an accident. Just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it won't happen tomorrow or the next day. That's why the 4-second following distance is so important. Remember, expect the unexpected. Leave room and maintain at least a 4-second following distance.
And that's good advice for any driver, but especially important for a professional school bus driver. Because of the bus's size, it takes you longer to stop. But if you have a little extra time and a little extra space around you, you can anticipate trouble and avoid accident-causing situations. Leave room helps you reduce the risk and avoid accidents, panic stops, and evasive maneuvers. It helps you give your passengers the safe and pleasant ride they deserve.
Communicate. While the first 3 principles in the LLLC defensive driving are about what information you perceive, communicate is about the information that you give to the other drivers around you. You have to let the other drivers on the road know what you intend to do so they can act accordingly. The most basic is your turn signal. Use your turn signal for 3 to 5 flashes before turning or changing lanes. You also need to use your 8-ways, your 4-way hazard lights, your horn, and even eye contact to communicate your intentions. A quick, friendly tap on the horn is a good way to let another driver know that you're there or to get their attention. Use your lights and your 4-way hazards to warn other drivers of dangers ahead. And lastly, it's important to give a quick glance with eye contact. This way, you can make sure other drivers know that you're there and that you're paying attention.
I think it's your turn to talk.
What?
Talk.
Oh.
Yeah.
The last principle, principle number 4, is communicate. In other words, make sure that other drivers, pedestrians, and anyone around your bus knows that you're there and what you're planning to do next.
Of course, you probably think they know you're there since you're driving a big yellow bus, but through experience, we've learned that some people seem to think we're invisible. Other drivers and pedestrians aren't always as attentive and safety conscious as you are. And even though you're driving a bus, sometimes people won't even notice that you're there. So what do?
Communicate. First, a friendly tap on the horn is a good way to get someone's attention, but you still have to give a quick glance to make sure that they know you're there. Try to make eye contact. Another way to communicate is with your headlights. You may even have local rules or regulations that require you to keep your headlights on at all times.
That's right. But even if you don't, a good rule of thumb is anytime you need your windshield wipers, turn on your lights so the other guy can see you. Even a slight mist, snow flurries, fog, or light rain will limit everyone's visibility.
That's true. Another way to communicate is with your brake lights. As you approach any intersection, gently touch your brake pedal to indicate that you might have to stop. Remember, the driver behind you can't see around your big yellow bus and has no idea whether or not you have a red light or a stop sign coming up. And be sure to use your turn signals before turning or changing lanes. Always allow at least 3 flashes before taking any action. How many times have you watched another driver turn right, turn left, or go straight and you had no idea what they were about to do because they didn't use their turn signals? It's not only frustrating, it's downright dangerous. Don't force the other guy into reading your mind. Tell them what you plan to do and tell them in advance by signaling at least 3 flashes before you turn or change lanes.
In all my years driving a bus, I've found that communication is critical to being a safe driver. If I know what the other vehicle is going to do, I can react accordingly and reduce the risk from the other driver making an unexpected move. The same applies to maneuvers I plan on making. I like to be a very courteous driver. I wave people on, I smile, I make eye contact. The more we communicate, the safer we'll be.
And remember, this course is all about defensive driving, allowing for the mistakes made by others. Even when you're driving safely and have the right of way, other drivers will make mistakes. Whether it's a car or a pedestrian, communicating will go a long way toward preventing accidents.
Well, that's about it for me. I hope you enjoyed this month's safety meeting. There are quizzes for each segment of the training that must be completed and returned to Regina in order to receive credit for this month's safety meeting. Once they're completed, go ahead and turn them into her box located by the dispatch window. Just wanted to thank you all again for all that you do. Believe me when I tell you, I know this year has not been easy, but we have gotten this far and we only have a couple more months before we can say goodbye to the 2020-2021 school year. Thanks again for taking the time to watch the safety meeting video, and especially thank you for your commitment to safety. And I'll close by saying, please